Welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast. I'm your guest host, Tony Peterson. Today I'm joined by Missouri bowhunter Zach Fleer to talk about organ transplants, facing your own mortality, and how unimportant big bucks are in the grand scheme of things. All right, folks, welcome to the Wired to Hunt podcast, which is brought to you by First Light. You might notice that this isn't the squeaky, weird voice of your usual host, but instead is the voice of your good old backup QB, Tony. Mark is off today getting a medical procedure because he suffers from an uncommon genetic variation of male pattern baldness, which only affects his mustache. Essentially, he's getting hair plugs for his upper lip, which is a worse process than it sounds because they have to remove the hair from his lower back and, well, lower than that. I'm sure he'll have a luxurious mustache when he comes out of hiding, and please don't call him stinky lips or anything like that because he's pretty sensitive about this stuff. My guest today is a good friend of mine named Zach Fleer, who is a really skilled whitetail hunter from Missouri. Not only does Zach routinely kill good deer on public land, he's also living with a spare part from his brother after experiencing near total kidney failure. Zach's story is a humbling one that frames up just how important family and friends are and how you shouldn't take a moment for granted, whether you're at home or in the woods. Zach Fleer, it's good to see your face, buddy.
Good to see you, Tony. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, we didn't know for a while there whether we were going to have you around or not. And
it was a little touch and go.
The reason I wanted to have you on here, you and I met on a hunt. Geez, that was probably, 7 or 8 years ago now on a turkey hunt. And you have gone through some medical stuff that really, I'm guessing we're going to get into here, but has really shaped the course of your life. And that's, we're kind of running this Shit Hits the Fan series here where we're talking to people who, probably have a different perspective on hunting and family and life than a lot of folks who haven't had something go on. So why don't you start? Let's start with this. What's wrong with your kidneys?
Well, it's an autoimmune disease that I was unaware that I had. I've probably had it my whole life until it got really bad, pretty much, and things started going downhill. So they call it IgA. There's a big fancy long term that I can't pronounce and can't remember, but IgA is what they refer to it as. It's worldwide. It's the most common autoimmune kidney disease. So it essentially turns your kidneys into scar tissue, so they don't work anymore. So,
and how did you know though? What was the first indication where you're like, man, something's going on?
It was the headaches, which I didn't know this. I learned a lot about kidneys over the last couple of years, but your kidneys actually affect your blood pressure or control your blood pressure. I had no idea, but I started having really bad headaches, and it was right after our daughter was born. So I just assumed that lack of sleep, it was second kid. It was a little bit of a rough transition. And so I was like, I'll get over it. But they progressively got worse and worse. And I was like, well, maybe I have migraines now. So, started taking lots of medication. And it got to the point where they were every day. And like the first part of my day until medication kicked in, I was just kind of out of it. So as a guy, I'm like, yeah, we're fine. I'll make it through. But my wife made me a doctor's appointment. And so went into that doctor's appointment just for the headaches. They were going to check me out. My blood pressure was 224 over 112 or something when I got checked in. And the nurse was like, you might be having a heart issue. So I got hooked up to the cardio thing, and my heart was fine. So went through a whole series of other things. And what gave it away was actually my ankles were super swollen, and they've always been that way. My wife made fun of me quite a bit for having cankles. But the doctor's like, there's probably something wrong with your kidneys. And so that started off a whole journey of, I hadn't gone to the doctor in I don't know how long, but I made up for it in a very quick amount of time. So
when was this? When did it all start?
July of 2021 was when the headache started. And it was January or February in 2022 was when I first went to the doctor. And so
you put up with the headaches, just assumed it was, life with another new baby, put it off till you couldn't do it anymore, huh?
Yep. And
And they don't mess around with high blood pressure when you're young and in shape.
no, that's what the doctor said. She's like, something's wrong because you're not very old. You're in good shape. So they moved things along pretty quickly. Got an appointment with a nephrologist. They did a bunch of blood testing, and he didn't have any baseline to go off of for like what I was previously to where I was at the first round of testing. So he's like, we actually waited out for about a month still with the headaches. Cause he's like, most blood pressure medicine we can give you is going to damage your kidneys. So he said, I want to make sure he thought it could have also been because all the medication I was taking to get rid of the headaches. He said, sometimes those can temporarily give you, they lower your kidney function. And it actually got worse as we did labs. So he said, it's definitely not that because I had quit taking medication for it. So then I got to do a biopsy, which in and of itself was one of the more traumatic things I've ever done. You get to be awake for that. And they use a really large needle and just stick it right in there. I was like, can't get worse than that. But
do they at least use some local anesthetic or something?
Oh yeah, they do. But you can feel it go in. It doesn't hurt, but you can feel it going in there. And yeah, that was a good time.
So and I'm guessing here, but with your autoimmune disease, were you like a special kind of case to go in there? Because did they have to be more careful about you getting sick other ways? Was that like a big concern or not?
It wasn't at that time. It is post-transplant because of the medications I'm on. But At that time, no, they weren't worried about it. He said genetic because I was worried about my kids, and he's like, you're not gonna have to worry about your kids. He said it's pretty random. He said it's the most common, but he said it's really random. He said your genetic markers just lined up that way.
Just bad luck.
Yep.
So how old were you in 2021 then when you started going through this?
I was 27. So.
And you had two kids at home.
I had 2 kids at home.
So when you started going through this, what are you thinking?
It was so health stuff has never really scared me that much. It was a wake up call, like going through college and my young adult life. I was a good athlete. I was proud of like my body and my endurance, that stuff. So I never really thought anything like this would happen. And so when it does happen, you're taken back a little bit, like, okay, I'm not invincible like I thought I was. But I just didn't know what it looked like going forward. At that point, I was still functioning pretty well. The first round of labs they did, he's like, your kidney functions at about 19%. Was when I first found out about this. And he said, the doctor said, if you go back in your life, you would have known if you knew what to look for, which was in college for me, was when my ankle started swelling, when I was playing baseball, doing all that stuff. So it was kind of a time of reflection, like, and he's like, it wouldn't have mattered. They can't treat it. The only way to treat it is you eventually you get to the point where you need a new kidney or you go on dialysis. So
what's the cankles thing? Is that just a water retention thing?
Yeah. Your kidneys aren't filtering fast enough. And so you tend to retain water.
So this started to show up, manifest itself in some symptoms, at least quite a few years before you started getting the headaches and really started getting it treated. You were really good at baseball, right?
Mm-hmm. Oh, I played college baseball.
That's what I thought. So as somebody who played at collegiate level sports, and you said this, you looked at it and go, health wise, I'm kicking ass and taking name tags, right? Like you're not worried about that. And then all of a sudden, maybe not all of a sudden, but in a fairly short period, you find out that there's something that you have no control over. Like as many times you go for a run and go to the gym, do whatever, it doesn't matter. Like what was that like?
It's humbling because it's like I said, I thought I was invincible for a while. And then, my wife talks about this. When you get married, it's like for better, for worse, and sickness and health. And you never think about that until something happens. And because most of the time, most people live their whole life and don't have any major issues. And it's like, and then it happens. And so you have to slow down a little bit. And it's like, okay, this is now reality. And like, how do you move forward from here? Was kind of my mindset, because like there's nothing I can do about it now. So we either have to work through it, and or you can. I wasn't gonna just give up, I guess. But,
Well, I mean, what I wonder about this, and I know that you're not this way. I feel like I would be this way if something like that happened to me. I'd be an insufferable prick to everyone because I would be like, take care of your health, because, there's enough stuff we do to ourselves to put ourselves in bad health, right? Like
oh yeah,
we know all the routes to take to really destroy your own personal health. And on top of that, you have this just, satellite thing that might happen in your life where all of a sudden, out of your own control, something vastly changes your health for the worse. And now you're at the whims of, the medical system and what you have access to, and just like a little bit amount of luck there too.
yeah, yeah. Medical system is. I hated it. I never went to the doctor, and now it's like I'm thankful we have the medical system because they did save my life. But yeah, it brings you to a point. Like for me, it's like I'm not in control, and you kind of come to a point, and I don't know if you're a religious guy or anything, but it was like, okay, God, let's have this conversation because clearly you're the one in control, not me. And so it just brought perspective really to everything. And like I said, to the health part, it was really annoying because I had to go on a super strict diet, because they're like all these things affect your kidneys. So you can't eat processed food, you can't eat salt, can't eat sugar. So I basically ate grilled chicken and salad for almost 2 years, which I was like, that was probably that was sadly probably the hardest part for a while. I was like, I am tired of eating salad and grilled chicken. Like it's just annoying. But
you couldn't eat venison?
No red meat. That was why I switched to the longbow for a little while, because it definitely decreased my success rate in the hunting. So, that's yeah, very limited red meat. Like the amount of protein, which I would eat more steak over like dessert. That was just who I was. And so they said you can have between 80 and 100 grams of protein a day. I was like, that's like one meal. Like, so that was an adjustment for our grocery shopping, for our family meals. We all got a lot healthier for a while there. So that's
when you're talking about doing that for like 2 years and being on that super restrictive diet, is that because you're on the waiting list now and you just got to maintain the healthiest level you can until your number gets called, or what?
So I already actually have done the transplant. We got that last year, 2023. My brother actually donated a kidney to me, which in and of itself is a very humbling experience. Because my brother is worse than I am. He hates doctors, is terrified of needles, all that stuff. So it was a traumatic experience for him. And so just humbling that you always hope that your brothers will be like there for you when you need them. And he stepped up and did it. So I'm thankful for my brother Gabe. So
does he ever going to let you live it down?
He's been pretty good about it. He said that beforehand. He's like, you don't owe me anything. He's like, I know you'd do it for me. So he's been okay about it. We try to do a few more favors for him, but.
So when that doctor said, you're at 19% function with your kidneys, I mean, is that right away? Are they like, listen, we got to get you on a list, or we got to find a donor ASAP?
So we started getting set up to get on the waiting list, which is a long and lengthy process. You got to get all your past history, medical history. I had to get dental x-rays to make sure I didn't have any infection in my teeth, like just all kinds of crazy random things. So that process took a while to get on the list. And they also were, they can't solicit live donors. So you have to sweet talk people, to call this number to see if they want to get tested, to see if they're a match. So it was kind of a long process there. And the dialysis is also an option, which for me, I never wanted to get on dialysis because that was like rock bottom in my mindset. When you're hooked up to a machine to stay alive, I was like, that's going to get, which I ended up having to, but yeah. So I think 15% is where they normally will say they can put you down to dialysis. But at my age, my doctor was pretty laid back. He said, you will know when you need to be on dialysis. And he said, as long as you're still doing what you can do and are feeling okay, he said, it's not like you're, gonna at that stage, he's like, you're gonna be okay. But he said, you'll know when you have no energy.
And you did?
I got there. I was pretty stubborn. So there was a couple markers. He said, you won't want to do things you normally love doing. And he said, you won't want to eat. And he said, those are the two things that he said you need to watch out for. So I got to the point where I didn't want to eat, and I kept forcing myself to eat because I was like, I don't want to do it. In hindsight, it's really stupid because I would have felt better having been on dialysis and went in better shape. And I lost energy. I did a lot less hunting that year, and playing with the kids, like stuff that normally I do. I spent a lot of time just kind of laying on the couch or laying in bed. So they actually ended up forcing me to do the dialysis just because when we got closer to surgery, my blood work and stuff, he's like, it's bad enough now where he said, you may not get through a surgery with the shape that your body's in. So he said, you have to get on dialysis. So,
well, and that laying around like that wasn't worse for you than the diet?
Well, if I laid around a lot, I didn't eat as much. So
that's true.
It leveled it out.
So did you originally go on the donor list and then end up, takes a little bit of time when you're not, because I think, isn't it like 3 to 5 years on average or something?
Yep. 4 years is average,
okay,
which is 3 to 5. So they're trying to speed that process up now, but yeah, they said it's going to be a minimum of 3 years. So they tried to speed that process up.
And in that case, you're waiting for somebody to pass away who's a match, right?
Yep.
And then in that time frame, you're free to go out and beg and plead anybody that you're related to or whatever who might be a match for a spare part.
Yep. I did. I think my mom was my champion there. So she, I don't have social media, so she blew social media up, and like, of course, we talked to my siblings knew what was going on, so they got tested. A lot of people we went to church with were kind enough to get tested. Like people I work with, I think they just did that so they didn't have to do extra work. But but yeah, so we had a lot of people that, like I said, again, that's humbling because I'm a very self-reliant, self-sufficient kind of person. So it's humbling to have a lot of people call in and willing to give a kidney if they're a match.
So what is that like? I mean, what are you thinking when you're in that position where you're like, all these people are going out of their way to help me? It's got to be like a little bit of an emotional roller coaster because there's got to be a lot of promise and then a lot of nope, not a match, or whatever. That person has something going on. They're not healthy enough to do it. What's like going through your head as you progress through that stage?
It's just you always wonder, like I would do that for somebody else, but having somebody do it for me, it's hard to process. I honestly intentionally didn't think about it too much. Kind of throughout the thing, it was very much an emotional roller coaster for my wife. She probably took on the brunt of a lot of this, taking care of the kids, taking care of the house. I wasn't doing much of anything, doing as much work as I could on the computer and then kind of hanging out in bed. And it got worse as time went on. But yeah, when I got down to the end, we had a couple people that got through to the process to the point. It's a pretty extensive process. They won't, different hospitals do it differently, but we did that at the University of Missouri, and they are super strict on who they'll let donate because they don't want to cause health problems for the person that donates. So they run them through a bunch of tests, and they turn a ton of people away just for different issues, like weight, anything, they would turn you away. And so we had a couple people get to the final stages and get turned away. And so that was really hard for my wife. Her normal life was not very normal for a while. And so when we finally, my brother got through the testing and I think he called us for a match. It was pretty emotional for my wife, and and myself. You're like, okay, there's light at the end of this tunnel. But
Was there a point there where you're losing hope?
I don't know that I ever lost hope. I was pretty convinced that God had a plan for us through this. But there was a point where it got pretty bad for a couple of days. Like I was in bed for probably 3 days, just didn't get up. And you're at that point, you're like, okay, like is this gonna like am I gonna make it to surgery? So you start wondering. And like I said, my wife was she took a lot more of that trauma on than I think I did. I don't think from my perspective, don't think I realized how far downhill I was. From her perspective, she watched the whole progression as I just kind of tanked the last couple of months. So
we focus like a lot on the physical aspect of it, like how you're feeling and super tired and, all of these like physical things, but mentally that's gotta be such a heavy lift to sit there and watch your wife handle everything while you're not doing you're not capable of doing anything and you have a lot of time to think.
Yeah. Yeah. It was hard. And she was a trooper, and there were some days that were real hard for her. And I can't remember who told me this, but I think it was one of the doctors, and he said, you going through this, he said, you're not really aware of how bad you are. He said, it's just kind of the human thing with something like this, where it's a slow decline. He said, it's hard for you to realize the point that you've gotten to. And so there, like I said, there were a few times where it's like, okay, this is bad. I just laying in bed. I can't get up. Like don't want to get up. And the harder parts, the thing I think that got to me the most mentally and emotionally was my 4-year-old son. I put him in bed one night and he's like, Daddy, are we going to wrestle again? And it just like broke my heart, because it was like, he didn't know what was going on. He knew something's going on. There's a lot of stress.
Right.
But I hadn't wrestled with that poor kid in months, and it was just like, I didn't have energy. And I was like, we'll wrestle again, buddy. But I think that was the point where I was like, it's gotten really, really bad. Like my little 4-year-old kid just wants to wrestle. So
that's like real shit. I mean, that's like framing it up, really. As you're going through that, like how hard is it to just slide into a pity party? Like I just wonder what it's like, because you see so many people out there, a lot of young folks, like it's really easy to sort of adopt this victim mentality and, the world's against me, whatever, pity party stuff. But you're actually like the person who should be having one. Like if anybody's entitled to a pity party, it's you laying in bed with your kidneys dying on you. Like how hard was that?
I don't know. My mindset normally is like, you give me a challenge, it's like I'm gonna push as hard as I can to get through it. And so I'd have to ask my wife, but there wasn't a lot of pity party on my part. I don't know. I look at it from her perspective. It's like, if somebody's going to have this issue, I was like, I'd rather it be me than one of my kids or my wife. Right. And so it's like, I'll bear this burden, or, I mean, we all had a burden to bear during the season, but it's like, I would rather this be me. And so it wasn't, I don't know. I tried not to have the pity party. I tried not to make a big deal about it or talk about it. It got pretty annoying with everybody asking, like, how are you? And it's like, I'm still here. Quit asking.
Right.
But so, yeah, I don't know. I didn't go down that path. So,
I could see that being an easy path to go down for a lot of people. So you go through this, you're on the waiting list. Your brother finally gets through all of the testing and everything, finds out he's the guy, even though he's terrified of needles and he doesn't want to do it. There has to be a sense of relief there, but maybe like a new sense of fear. Like now you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, but you are not there yet.
Yep. And that was a real thing. Like, my poor wife, she called this doctor multiple times, like, is he going to make it to surgery? And we kind of got to a point where it was too late. We had the surgery scheduled, I think it was December 13th of 2022. 2, I think, is when the surgery actually got scheduled for. And we had kind of picked that date. We could have done it sooner, but I was trying to let my make it a convenient time for my brother and little. So we scheduled this in October. I'm pretty sure it was September, October. And at that point in time, like I didn't feel great. I was still kind of getting around doing some stuff. So I was like, we'll be fine, having that whole conversation. And that was when the bottom kind of fell out. And so then it was a point where it was like, okay, am I going to make it to surgery? And I still didn't want to do the dialysis thing. And I started dialysis at the end of November. And that was the point where even hunting, I rifle hunted that year. I actually shot that really big 8-point, but like I couldn't do anything with that deer after I shot it. I was like, I can't move it. I can't field dress it. I was just there. I had to call for help. And that was when it got a little more real. Cause I was like, this is what I always loved doing, what I want to do. And that's like, I just can't do it. So that was a little bit of like, am I gonna get to the point where we make it to surgery? And then the call where they're, so I was doing labs weekly, and you can kind of see the progression of where it was going down to. And that last round of labs, I was at 6% kidney function, and came home, and like you're sitting about that, I quit showing my wife my lab numbers because it was so much stress for her. But got that phone call where like, you're gonna have to be like on dialysis. And so one of the main reasons I didn't want to be on dialysis is they fuse a vein and artery in your forearm. They like cut them, and I don't know how that process works, but he's like, you'll lose some feeling in your hand. And I was like, I just don't want to do that. I don't want to put a port in my arm. And it was the way they had it set up. You had to get the I don't know, like pre-op or whatever. They walk you through the whole process. That takes about 2 weeks to get scheduled. Then you do the surgery, and then you have to wait 2 weeks before they can use the port to do dialysis. And we got to the point where they're like, you can no longer do that. So they had to put a direct port in my, like in my neck, straight in. And so that was not fun either. I was like, this is all kinds of terrible now. But
so when because you and I kept in contact through that whole thing, and I knew you had mentioned a couple times that you were running real low on energy and not feeling great, but every once in a while you'd send me a kill photo of something, and I'm like, well, he's still getting out there. Were you still enjoying hunting at that point? Because at that point you were like, what, a month out from surgery, or not even quite a month?
Yeah. That November one. So I didn't hunt near as much. I like getting up in the mornings was almost impossible. So morning hunts were just out. So that whole fall bow season and everything, I think I hunted twice. I did kill a doe with a bow, which I felt like was a pretty good accomplishment out of that point. Thankful I had help getting that deer out too. And then November, the day, I think I shot that deer on opening day, but like the day before was one of the worst days I had. And I was like, I'm probably not going to go hunting. And ended up going out, and I was cold all the time anyway at that point, and we had a pretty cold day. So I had every layer of clothing that I had on. I was inside a sleeping bag and just bundled up, and was about ready to give up. I was like, I'm going back to the house when that deer came out. So I was like, it was like a little bit of a lift in spirits. I was like, okay, we can get through this. But yeah, it got pretty bad there to the point where it's like I didn't hunt any mornings that whole season. It's just.
But when you did hunt, though, even just the random afternoons that you got out there and you felt okay, was it? Could you enjoy it? Was it like a good welcome distraction? Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was. It was really good just to be out there. I took my little son multiple times too, and I just enjoyed being with him in the woods. Yeah, it was a good escape for a little while where you didn't have to think about it really. So it was nice. It was a nice little break.
Did you find yourself when you were hunting in those moments? Because you've killed a lot of big deer. Like, did you find yourself going like caring about that part less and just being like, man, I just need to sit here in the freaking woods?
Yeah. Killing was there. So I actually didn't know if I actually wanted to kill something because then I had to get it out. And so I was still hunting some public land, and it's pretty good hiking some of those. And just that in and of itself was it took a lot of effort, but I was like, I want to do this. Just still want to be out here and enjoy nature. And, but yeah, when it came down to like rifle season, I was like, the first legal deer that comes out, it's going to get shot at, because it's like, I don't know how much longer I could do this. But, so that was, yeah, I was like, I'm just going to, whatever comes out and is legal.
When you were doing that, I mean, when you were getting close to surgery time and you're running real low and you're still going out there hunting and still doing your thing, was that driving your wife crazy, or did she encourage you?
She encouraged that because she knows just that it's always been kind of my escape. Like you work hard and to have a kid, it's like, okay, I'm going to take this time and just go and do that. So she was always very encouraging for that. I didn't go a lot, but I think she was probably, the times I went by myself, she was probably a little worried. But she still allowed me to go, which I appreciate. So
she probably knew how important it was to you.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you go through that, you kill that big bastard. You're right up on the cusp of this surgery. What's it like going into it?
Well, so I think the surgery actually got pushed back, which was, I started on dialysis, which is, it's kind of terrible. Honestly, the doctors all told me, they're like, you'll feel better. And I was like, great, I'm looking forward to that. And so the first session I did feel a little bit better, but I was going 3 to 4 times a week, and you're in there for 4 hours. So you got a lot of time to read books and think about things. But so I remember.
Hold on a second, Zach. I don't really even know what dialysis is. Can you explain it?
So they put a port into one of your arteries. So they went down into actually through my neck into my whatever artery that is. My biology is terrible.
Carotid. Whatever.
Yes, that's the word for it. So they did that, and then they hook you up to this big machine that's got some kind of fancy filter on it. I learned a lot from the guy that had been doing it for a long time. He said they used to use seaweed to filter out. So they pump blood out of you continuously. It's cycling through, and it filters out all the toxins, which is what your kidneys are supposed to do, but mine were no longer filtering anything. And it pulls fluid off you too, because when your kidneys get bad enough, you don't urinate as often, and your body just builds up fluid. And so they can use that process to pull fluid, and it filters your kidneys. So it's a giant machine sitting beside me. You can watch your blood pump through it. You can feel it coming in and out. Like it's interesting. That room was full of people that were in worse shape than I was. Like that was pretty humbling too. You walk in there, it's like, man, all these people look like they're already at the end of their rope.
Were they all getting dialysis too?
Yeah, they're all on dialysis. They had a special room that's just dialysis patients. So you go in, and that's your appointed time and get hooked up. So
you were doing this like 12 to 16 hours a week?
Yep. 4 days a week, it took about 4 hours. The sessions were, so.
And did it make you feel better?
The first time I was like, okay, this is good. I felt I had some energy, but they didn't run. I can't remember all the technical terms for it, but they run you for a certain amount of time, and they pull a certain amount of fluid off, and the filtration rate, all that stuff. So basically to just get your body started, it was a pretty short session, and I actually felt better. But they got progressively worse, like the more I did it. And they said that some people's bodies just don't tolerate dialysis. I mean, it's a pretty, the guy that's hooking me up, he's like, it's kind of a form of torture, but we're keeping you alive for now. So, and it just, you get through the process, you come home. And I always went in at 7 in the morning, and I'd come home around 11:30 and would eat something, say hi to the kids. And I was in bed until probably 6 o'clock at night when I could get back up. It just wipes you out. Like you have no energy. It was,
I suppose if half of your blood isn't inside of you
yeah,
for 4 hours.
Yeah. So it's, I'm I'm thankful for the process. It kept me alive longer, but yeah, it's hard to. I'm trying to think of how the guy put it. He said, "We'll keep you alive, but you're not really living." But that's the way he put it, which was kind of true. But
so then your surgery got bumped back a little bit. Why?
The surgeon had a family emergency. His daughter actually got super sick, and so they pushed it back. It was scheduled for December 13th, and it got pushed all the way back to January 19th. So it was, at that point in time, I was very thankful to have started dialysis, because it would have been pretty rough that extra few weeks trying to get to surgery. So,
What's the surgery like?
you go in and they do a bunch of blood tests. They do all that stuff. They take you to a big prep room and shave all the hair off everywhere on your body. Which that's always, that's my joke. I was like, I go into the hospital and I always have to take my clothes off. I was like, is there a time where I can just come in and not have to get naked? Like every time I go in there, like I'll just take my clothes off when I walk in. But, yeah, so it's that part's awkward. And then they tell you, all the things that they're going to do to the surgery, all the risks you have. And then, do you have any questions? Like, how you feeling today? I asked the surgeon, I was like, how you feeling today? How's your steady hand? But he's like, I'm good. Yeah. So I use humor to deal with stressful situations. So, my wife doesn't appreciate that very much in those moments, but yeah, there's that time where, like my brother came in right before we went to surgery. That was probably hard because he could tell he was nervous. Like, I felt really bad for him because like he just despises needles and knives and all that stuff. So, just stress for him. And then they take you to a room where you're just kind of sitting and waiting. You get to think about a lot of things there, and like you reflect on life. Like, what have I done to this point? And so, like you think about jobs and all the hunting stuff, and I was like, none of that is really all that important in this moment. Like you start thinking about my wife and kids. I was like, at that point, my wife was actually pregnant again, which I left. I forgot to mention that she was our third child was born 10 days after my surgery, so she was ready to pop. So the pushing the surgery back for her was like, she's like, I'm going to have a baby and you're going to be in surgery. Like it was stressful, but.
Do you think she was more stressed out than you?
Yes.
Yeah.
Significantly. And she still carries more trauma from that, or I just haven't dealt with any of it yet. So, but that's the stuff you think about. I'm like, I'm leaving a wife behind has 2 kids. She's 9 months pregnant. Like, yeah, you have no control over it. It's like you just pray that God's sovereign and going to take care of you in that time. And it's like if you take me, take care of my wife and kids. So
yeah, I bet her stress level was. I mean, because if it goes wrong for you, you check out, and she's still got a real heavy lift going on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot that she had the baby when you were just post operation. So you have to. I'm guessing you had to sit around and wait because they got to go in, take his out, make sure everything goes okay before they start on you. And so you're just like, however long this takes, sitting there twiddling your thumbs, thinking about all the dumb shit you've done in your life and all the decisions and all the, like probably going pretty deep, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You got a lot of time to think. I don't remember how long but I was in a room just laying there by myself. There wasn't really any nurses in at that time. They had me all prepped for surgery, and it's like, we'll come and get you. When they get the kidney out of my brother, they said, we wait for that because if something goes wrong, we don't want to have you already prepped for surgery, like in surgery. And so, yeah, you do like get to reflect a lot on life, what you've accomplished with your life. And, like in that moment, none of those big deer, none of that stuff mattered. Like I was like, I spent a lot of time pursuing all of that. And, it's like a perspective. There's a lot of times where early in our marriage, I was like, I ditched my wife a lot to go hunting. It's like, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Like you reflect on all those things, like all the decisions, all the what ifs, like, there's probably a lot of things I should have done differently. So it was, yeah, I probably had an hour and a half to do that. But
I mean, that's like obviously I've never gone through this, but it sounds like such a very natural thought process. But at the same time, you've got to weigh that against having something that you're that passionate about to where you're still going out to the blind with your son when you can barely walk, you're sleeping all day. There's a component of that passion for the outdoors that's carrying you through to some level. Maybe it's 2% of what the family is or whatever, but it's like it's not insignificant, but then you go through this and you frame it up against the rest of your life that you could have lost. Yeah. And it's just the big deer, just not that important.
They're not. And like even post surgery and all that, I don't hunt near as much as I did. That's because I think, well, part of it, you have 3 kids, so you're just busier, but the perspective of that, and my wife said that too. She's like, there's been a lot of change since then. Like I spend as much time with my family as possible. I spend a lot more time serving other people too, like in our church, and just like eternal perspective. Like this, I'm going to die at some point. I know that, but you have eternal life after this that you can live now for. So there's been a big shift. I still love hunting. I would do it all the time, but having gone through that and coming to a point where you get to reflect on like this is what I did with life pre-surgery. And I feel a little bit like I have a second chance now. It's like, okay, I'm going to reset some things, reprioritize some things, and try to really focus on family, like investing in my family, because the reality of this is kidneys have a shelf life. They've already told us that, and so it's like this one's not going to last. Probably not going to last the rest of my life. Average is 15 to 20 years. I was a close enough match to my brother. They said, you'll probably get longer than that out of it. I think the longest one they've had is like up to 40 years. But so there's a reality there that's like, this is a temporary fix. Like we'll either have to do it again or, but so that's a good reminder to keep things in perspective right now.
So when you come out of this, like, what do you feel when you wake up from that surgery? Like, what do you like when you come out of that and you're kind of like, your brain's going back a little bit and you're realizing what's going on? Like, what do you feel?
I didn't have a headache was the first thing I noticed, which is the first time in however many years I was like, my head doesn't hurt. But I was, pretty groggy. Like you go in, you get on they have you move over to the surgery table and you're in your nice little gown, mostly naked. And anesthesia starts, and like there was a lot more people in the room than I thought there'd be. So I was like, well, if I was awake, this would be embarrassing, but like whatever. So you do the breath and then you're out. Like, and then just remember waking up and there was just like cords and things stuck in me everywhere. And I was curled up on my side and I was coming in and out a lot. I remember the nurse saying something to me. I have no idea what she said, but it's like, I'm awake. I was like, that's gotta be a good sign. Like I'm still here. This is, I don't think this is what heaven looks like. It still smells like a hospital. So, yeah, I was like, just grateful to wake up. Like, okay, I'm still here. And then, I don't know I was pretty out of it, cognitively at that point. So I don't know how long it was before, like, they allowed my wife to come in and see me. It was a several hours long surgery. And, so it was good when I finally got to go into the recovery room when they could come in, and they had pretty limited visitors because at that point they shut my immune system off completely, so it didn't reject the kidney. And so
you're on a pretty heavy immunosuppressant after the surgery.
Yeah, well, immediately after surgery, they hooked me up to. They call it the rabbit. I can't remember what the long name was for it, but it's something they derived from rabbits. So that was a question they asked me, like, do you eat a lot of rabbit? I was like, well, I have before, but I wouldn't say a lot. But it just shuts your immune system down, which is why they leave you in the hospital for quite a while after. And I'm still on immunosuppressive meds, but they're not to that level. Like at that point in time, they're like, cold or anything, like you don't have an immune system, like it can take you out. So it was interesting that you can have a visitor in there, but they were pretty strict about that. So
even when you go through all that you went through and you get out on the other side, now you have a new concern that the kids picking up some kind of virus at daycare or whatever can all of a sudden turn, it can break bad in an instant.
Yeah, real bad. So we were in quarantine for 90 days. Like I said, my wife had her third kid, Solomon, 10 days after surgery, and I couldn't go, which was really hard. Like I really enjoy my kids and like being there in that process. And it was really, really hard for her too. Like I got to FaceTime in, which is it's not the same, but yeah, like you miss that, like miss the birth of my third kid. Yeah, there was a lot of weird things happening. And so 90 days, I was stuck at home. I tried to do some work on the computer and stuff, but I mean, it's 90 days where even my wife can't really go anywhere, because if she brings anything back, it's like could be crash and burn for me. So,
so give me a on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 is not a badass at all. 10 is super duper badass. Where's your wife fall after this whole thing? 47.
Yeah, she's definitely a 10. She had a baby on her own. She took care of the baby and me and our other kids on her own after that. Like, it's just, she was a trooper through that all. I think in the moment, like, she did what she had to do, and coming out of that now is where she started processing all of it. So it's more of like any health stuff right now is an instant trigger for her. And like I said, either I'm not very emotionally aware or ignorant or what, but I was like, it still doesn't really, like, I made it through this. Like, God provided. I don't feel like he's gonna take me like with another sickness or something. But for her, it's real, because again, she's like, I've got 3 kids. Like, you go off and die. Like, I have to take care of all this. So it's really hard to contextualize, probably, because your experience, I mean, you were to everybody, you were like the victim, right? Like, you were the one who was suffering, and she's just got to put on a brave face and survive. Mm-hmm. But her experience is vastly different than yours, but real bad. Yeah. And kind of in a way that she can't really even get it. She's not getting credit the same way you are for getting through. Like, it's a different experience. Yeah. Yeah. And we had a lot of friends from church and wherever, just, they were constantly checking in on me, like, how you doing? It's like, I'm doing fine. You need to check in on my wife, especially during that 90-day quarantine, like post-baby. You got some, just a lot of emotions after you have a baby, and hormones going crazy. Like, I was like, just check on her. Like, she's, do
you know what it's like?
Worse than I am.
This is gonna be a terrible example. I'm gonna use it anyway. So you're this rich dude who goes to this premier hunting place and shoots a 196 incher and gets your trophy photos, and everybody's just like, oh my God, Zach's the best hunter ever. Meanwhile, your wife's just the guide who did all the work to find it, all the work to set up the stands, run the cameras, pattern it, everything. And she's just sitting back there like, well, like, I pitched in a little too, but everybody's like, no, you're the man. That's what I think of when you tell me that.
Yeah. Excuse me. That is 100% kind of how it went. But
so in preparation for this podcast, I was just reading up on organ transplants and kidney failure and stuff. And one thing that I read about that's pretty interesting is, with a lot of organ transplants, people's personality will change afterwards. And so, you kind of look at that and go, is this just going through something super traumatic and, like facing your own mortality kind of thing? Or are you taking a piece of that person with you and becoming a little bit of them? Like, do you now suddenly do any of the annoying stuff that your brother does?
So we do have this joke. My wife read up on about a lot of this stuff, like, and a kidney kidney disease is probably the best thing you could have because everybody has two kidneys. So like you got a heart problem, like nobody's going to freely donate their heart. I don't think so anyway. But yeah, so my brother, he shops all the time. Like we make fun of him. He says he doesn't, but he's always shopping. And when you have 90 days of quarantine, like you could read some books, you could do some work, but you inevitably end up on Amazon. Like, and my wife's like, this is real. It's like you're doing it. And I was like, no, I mean, I was like, what else are you gonna do? So I bought I think I bought a pair of pants and some shirts, which I don't ever shop for clothes, but she's like, this is a real thing. Like so I wouldn't say I still shop a lot. I don't think my personality's changed a lot, but
would she say that it has?
I don't think she would, other than that experience where I shopped for like 2 weeks. But
you got so bored you closed shop?
I did. That was pretty terrible. But
dude, I kind of get it. When I got COVID and I was in, my 10 days or whatever, back when COVID was, everybody was scared and, you actually did quarantine away. Yeah. I started like online shopping for shit. Like I look around my house and if I didn't kill it, like, or take a picture of something, like it's not going to end up on my walls. Right. But my walls are covered in decorations and stuff that like, I was thinking about this the other day when I was working on it. I'm like, I've never bought a blanket in my life. Like if you were like, go buy a blanket, I'd be like, I don't know. I guess I'm going to go to Target and try to find one. But they show up in my house all the time, like all these decorations and stuff. But when I was in COVID quarantine, I watched every Jackass movie I watched. I was like, I kind of get like a little bit of what you're talking about. Cause I was starting to look at stuff like, oh, this is a cool thing to like put on my wall. And I never do that.
Yeah. I watch fishing shows, which I have nothing. I like fishing. The fishing shows, I don't know how you make them exciting. But I watched a lot of fishing shows during that time too. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I was just what I did.
As somebody who filmed a fishing show last year, they're difficult to make exciting.
I could imagine that.
I filmed it with Andy May, the whitetail hunter. I think what made that show, we caught a lot of fish. It was cool. But I think what made it cool was just us giving each other nonstop shit. Like when you're fishing with your buddies, Yeah. Because otherwise, fishing's tough. To make fishing compelling, that's why most of the content is all tournament based, because there's some drama built in there,
Yeah.
Total sidetrack. So you're out of you got a long runway ahead of you now before you even start thinking about this latest kidney here. Maybe starting to wear down on you a little bit. How does you kind of alluded to this, but like, what are you looking at for like your future now? Like, have you changed how you plan? Like, are you like, man, we're taking the kids to Disney, we're doing this, we're doing that. Like, did it change at all? How you're like, I'm grabbing life by the short and curlies and I'm going hard.
Yeah, it did. I came out of it with a little more motivation to do things differently. Like, I think one for me was like, this life's going to end. So thinking about eternity, like I started doing pasture training, still am like going through that process. But I was like, I don't want to have all my hopes stuck in this life, because I know it's going to end, and it just about did. So that's been a big change for our family too. But outside of that, like I said, just like really investing in time with my kids. It's like I wrestle with my son all the time now, every day, lunch breaks or at night. He's just, it's fun. So I don't want to miss out on those opportunities. And there was a lot of times with my kids and with my wife where I missed opportunities just to be with them, be present. And so I think coming out of it, that's been the biggest two things for me, was like just being present. Cause it like got pretty close there to my wife, not having a husband anymore. And so it's like, I don't want her, I don't know. They talk about like the rut widows and all that stuff. It's like, I don't want her to feel that way anymore. And so it's been a change with a little more perspective on investing in my family, and just, what God's called me to do with, sharing the gospel. So
when you look at your hunting future with whitetails, is it one of the things that I've always respected about you is you have access to private land, but you spend a lot of time working on public land deer too. And you know, a lot of people when they're like, hey, I can go to the farm, even if it's, you know, farther away or whatever, they're like, I'm going someplace where the food plots are and the box blinds are. And I'm taking that route. I'm not going to go fight it out on public land down in Missouri like you do, but you still do it. Are you like, do you look at hunting now just differently? Like, I just want to go be where I want to be. When you take the time to go, do you look at it differently instead of just thinking like, man, my best chance for a big one's here, or I know they work this ridge and I want to get up there? Like, do you plan it differently at all now or not?
So I have to plan it differently because I can't scout as much as I did. So from that aspect, it's planned a lot differently. I do a lot more scouting as I'm hunting now, finding fresh sign, which should have been doing all that before, but a lot of times you scout before season and I go to where that is. But like finding where the deer are, because it's like I got a lot more limited time to actually be here, so I got to make it count. And I'm kind of a realist, so the expectations I have for how big a buck I'm going to go after aren't what they were, 2-3 years ago. Like I have a limited amount of time out here. If like the deer I shot last year, I think that was the smallest buck I've ever shot, but it was pretty exciting because I was like, that's the first deer I've killed post surgery. Like it was just awesome to be back out there again. So just enjoying the moment. Like it helped me. It probably helped me enjoy hunting even more because I just enjoy being in the woods more now, and shooting whatever gets me excited in the moment without the weight of expectation of killing a trophy, which I wasn't real bad about it, but it was always there. Like there's people that know me have an expectation that I'm going to kill a big deer, and it's like I may not. I may just go out and have fun and shoot the first legal thing. Like I don't really care anymore. But
and you're speaking my language now, buddy. I mean,
yeah, I know.
It's just there's a freeing aspect to not caring about the big antlers as much. There's just like it's like freeing to just be like, I view this more as like an outlet for me to just go be in a place that really matters to me. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's important to get the meat. It's fun to shoot them. It's fun to do the whole process. But when you fly real close to the sun with the trophy stuff, and then you realize like it's cool, but there's a lot of it that's not cool. And it doesn't matter as much as we make it seem. And you kind of come back to earth a little bit and you're like, I'm looking at this, the same thing that the trophy hunters are doing, but I'm looking at it a different way. Mm-hmm. It's really freeing. And it's like, that's a message I've been pushing a lot. That's one of the reasons last year, Steve and I went down to Oklahoma to hunt public land, Steve Vernella. Yep. And I was like talking to him beforehand. I was like, dude, we're going deer hunting. This is not going to be a big buck deal. Like if we get deer in front of us, it's going to be freaking awesome. And it's hard for people to grasp that. And I killed 2 little bucks on that hunt. I know I'll get a ton of shit for it, but I don't care. Like 4 days on public land and you get a 15-yard broadside at something in a state that's 10 hours from home. It's just like, oh, yeah. There's a different feel to it than going out and, chasing a hit lister on grandma's farm or whatever. And they're all great, but it's fun when you kind of achieve that level where you're just like, I don't need that pursuit of big antlers. Like he walks out, I'm going to shoot him. Like you get on, like, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying like when it's not, that's like not priority one. Things you just look at it differently. It's freeing. Yeah.
It has been a lot more freeing. Like I just enjoy hunting more. There's not the pressure of I have to make sure it's legal. That's my biggest hurdle right now. Is I use the binos a lot, and on that one I shot last year, I was scoping him out pretty hard, and I'm like, dude, he's got 4 points on one side.
Yeah, because you've got APRs down there.
Yeah, we got to be 4 points on one side. So, and when I first saw him, I was like, I felt disappointment because I was like, I don't think he has 4 points on one side. And then he turned, and I was like, oh man, I was like, go time, he's got 4 points. But yeah, it's more fun, and I think it's really good that I'm in this place now because this year, Titus will be 6. So in Missouri, you can start hunting when you're 6, and like taking him out with no expectations. Like, you shoot whatever you want, buddy. We're going to have a good time with this. And so that's more what I look forward to now. Like, and I'll be excited if I shoot a big deer, but I'm not going to pass. I'm not going to pass a lot of deer waiting on a big one. So
at 6, is he just going to rifle hunt then?
I'll see if he can shoot the crossbow. He's not real accurate right now. He just gets excited to shoot a gun or the crossbow or whatever. So we got some skills to hone over the summer, but yeah, we'll see how he does with the crossbow. But I don't want to push him too hard either. Like, if he's not ready, I won't force him to go. He'll enjoy going with me, and he always wants to shoot squirrels too. So we might try to get some practice in on squirrels before we hit for deer. So
that's a good way to start it. Hey, he hasn't turkey hunted yet?
He's been with me. He didn't get to carry a gun or anything. So
yep.
But he just enjoys being with Dad mostly. But
yeah, 6 is young, man. I mean, it's just, they're on the cusp there, you know. And I even look back. I didn't start my daughters till they were 8 on turkeys and deer. And I look back at the pictures of them now, and I'm like, I can't believe I took them out there when they were that little, you know. And my wife is really like, I can't believe you took my daughters, you know, gun hunting turkeys when they were 8. When you look at the pictures, but it's, you know, it's cool to get them on an animal, but it's just that part of like my hunting, that's what changed me the most, is when I could take my girls. I mean, I'll have years now where the first month of the season, I don't even pick up a weapon other than carrying one for them. And I don't care at all. Like, it's so fun to take them and just experience it, you know, through their perspective. Now it's like, it's so fun to be with somebody when any deer is anywhere near you, or a turkey gobbles anywhere near you or anything. They are like, oh my God, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me.
Their eyes are getting huge. Yeah. It's been a lot of fun just to re-experience stuff that I'd forgotten about, like little things you find walking through the woods. His pockets will be full of acorns by the time we get out, just stuff like that. He gets excited about everything. And I'm like, I need to just enjoy all the moments again. Whereas you get, for a while, I got so focused on, you know, killing that big deer. It's like, I missed out on just enjoying being out here. So
right.
It's a good reminder.
Dude, they let you know how much cool stuff is out there.
Yeah.
And, you know, you think about, I think about this a lot, where, you know, if you have limited time and you go out and you're scouting or you're hunting, you're so mission focused, and you kind of miss a lot of that stuff. You know, like when I was growing up, like, it was pretty common. We're just going to the woods. Like, we're just going to go walk through the woods, you know, or like just be there. And you're just doing that for the experience of being there, and not because you're going to get a pattern on a 160 or whatever. And kids are just like, they're perfect for framing that up for you. Like, they just view it differently. And it's like such a nice centering moment, because we can go so far, you know, I don't know if it's even the wrong way, but we can go down some different paths where we just don't appreciate the woods for what it really can offer you. It's like, if it doesn't deliver me that hit lister, it was no good. And it's like, man, that's just not, it's a rough way to go about it.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah. I was the same way growing up. A lot of it was to escape doing, you know, chores at home, but we lived on 50 acres. So I was just gone all day, playing in the woods, playing in the creek, and just loving it. And so it's been good to get back to that, just enjoying being out there. So
big time. Did you kill that buck last year on public?
I did. Yeah. It was, I know there's, we camped out. I went with a couple other guys, just camped in the back of the truck, which was a lot of fun. And, it was one of those days where I set them up, and every spot that I wanted to go after I got them where they wanted to go, somebody was like pulling into the parking spot. I was like, this is December. You guys should be hanging out for Christmas or something. But so the last spot I ended up going was, there was actually a bunch of fresh signs. So I was like, okay, well, we'll hang out here. But yeah, he's a public land deer. So
what was he doing? What'd you kill him on?
I was in a transition area. Like, I was real tight to bedding, and there's a bunch of crop fields behind me, and he was just working his way through down a trail. I shot him at 8 yards, which was probably good. I needed a close shot. It had been a while, so but yeah, he was just slowly moving through without a care in the world. I was on the ground too, which made it even cooler.
So you went in to Missouri public land in December after the gun season raged through. Speed scouted a spot after plan, A, B, C, and D was taken up by other dudes, and found some fresh sign, set up in there, and killed one from the ground at 8 yards.
I did, yeah. It was pretty awesome. I thought the only mistake I thought I made was there was a tree on the ground that had a split trunk, and so it was a huge tree, and I set up in front of it. But the trail actually came by me. One of the trails came by me at like feet, and so it split off at about 8 yards in front of me. And so as he's coming down this, I was like, "You better turn, otherwise it's gonna end bad." And he did, which is the way I thought they would go. But it could have got. I don't know if I could have shot him if he came straight or not. But yeah, it was fun.
Did you kill that deer with a compound?
Yeah, I haven't been shooting the longbow very much. You
don't need the challenge anymore.
I do at some point, but not. I had enough challenges, so
right.
Yeah,
man, I love it so much. Your story is freaking wild, dude. So glad you made it through that. It's great to see you. I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your story. I think a lot of people are going to listen to this and they're going to maybe reevaluate how they look at their hunting a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, I hope so. I'm glad to share. And, I think the woods in general would be a lot better place if everybody's out there just enjoying it. It gets a little competitive, I think, and just go out there and enjoy it, and enjoy your family. Take them out there with you. So,
yeah, I love it, buddy. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Tony.
That's it for this week, folks. Make sure to tune in every week for some more whitetail goodness. I'm your guest host, Tony Peterson. This has been the Wired to Hunt podcast, which is brought to you by First Light. Now, if you want some more whitetail content, feel free to head on over to themeateater.com to get your fill. And while you're there, feel free to check out all the other podcasts and the video series and the articles, or maybe even do a little shopping at the MeatEater store while you're there.